It's okay. I didn't quite catch the end of that. You said, I love you.
Maggie. Maggie Dunn was her name.
In the glittering world of American Idol, stories of triumph often shine brighter than the tears shed behind the scenes. But every so often, a contestant comes along whose voice carries not just melody, but memory, loss, and resilience. John Foster was one of those names that fans won't forget, not because he shouted the loudest or danced the hardest, but because his voice trembled with truth. When viewers first saw him step onto that brightly lit stage, guitar in hand and eyes full of quiet conviction, they didn't yet know the heartbreak hidden beneath that calm exterior. His performances radiated authenticity, the kind that makes judges lean forward and the audience fall silent. Yet as weeks went by, whispers began to surface. There was something deeper behind that small-town charm. Who was this young man from Addis, Louisiana, and what pain was he turning into poetry? As the competition progressed, the answers began to unfold in the most unexpected and emotional way, revealing a story that the cameras couldn't fully capture, a story that American Idol didn't tell the world. Early life and roots. Long before national television cameras ever captured his face, John Foster was just a boy growing up in Addis, Louisiana, a quiet place where Friday nights meant football games, family gatherings, and the sound of country radio humming through truck speakers. Reporters who later visited the town described it as the kind of community where everyone knows everyone, and talent doesn't go unnoticed for long. John's childhood was steeped in rhythm and rural storytelling. His father introduced him to classic country legends like George Strait and Alan Jackson, while his mother often joked that John could sing before he could walk. Teachers remembered him as a soft-spoken kid, polite but focused, who often hummed tunes while doing his homework. By his teenage years, he was performing at small local venues and posting raw acoustic covers online, performances so heartfelt that people started calling him the kid who sings like he means it. But behind that gentle image was a growing determination. John wasn't just another small-town dreamer chasing fame. He wanted to tell stories that mattered, songs that could heal hearts, including his own. Those early years, surrounded by bayous, faith, and the echoes of Southern melodies, quietly shaped the voice the world would later hear on American Idol. Yet, as fate would soon prove, that voice would become more than entertainment. It would become a vessel for something far deeper. The American Idol breakthrough. When John Foster walked onto the American Idol stage for his audition, few expected the quiet young man with a humble smile to command such presence. He didn't need flashy theatrics or a sob story. His authenticity did the talking. Holding his worn-out guitar like an old friend, he introduced himself with that unmistakable Louisiana accent and began to sing a country ballad that silenced the room within seconds. Judges like Lionel and Perry exchanged quick glances, recognizing a rare kind of honesty that couldn't be faked. John wasn't just performing, he was storytelling, and every word seemed to carry the weight of someone who lived 1,000 small heartbreaks. By the time he hit the final note, the applause wasn't just polite, it was emotional. He earned his golden ticket to Hollywood, but what the cameras didn't capture was how surreal it all felt for him. In interviews later, John admitted he wasn't sure he belonged there, surrounded by big voices and bigger personalities. Yet his quiet charm and soulful delivery quickly turned him into a fan favorite. His renditions of country classics reminded people of why they fell in love with the genre in the first place, because it speaks to real people and real pain. As his journey continued, fans began to sense that there was more behind that voice, a shadow, perhaps, or a story untold. And they were right, because just as John's star began to rise, tragedy would soon strike, changing the course of his life and his music forever. The tragedy that changed everything. Just as John Foster's confidence and career began to bloom, an unimaginable tragedy struck that would alter his path forever. Late in 2022, news broke from his of Addis, Louisiana. A horrific car crash had claimed the lives of two beloved teenagers and Caroline Gill. Wasn't just a name in the headlines to John, she was one of his closest friends, someone who had supported his music long before American Idol ever came calling. The two shared countless late-night talks about dreams, music, and the kind of people they wanted to become. Her death, sudden and senseless, left John shattered. Friends say he from social life for weeks, struggling to process the grief. For someone whose gift was expressing emotion through song, he suddenly found himself speechless. The tragedy made local and national news, not only because of the shocking circumstances, but also because of the profound impact it had on the young musician whose star was rising. When reporters later asked him about it, his voice cracked as he simply said, "She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." It was clear that no amount of fame could fill the silence left behind. But from that heartbreak, something quietly began to grow, a determination to turn pain into purpose, to honor a life lost by giving it a melody. That seed of sorrow would soon become one of the most unforgettable moments ever witnessed on the American Idol stage. The performance that stopped the show. When John Foster returned to the American Idol stage after his death, he wasn't the same bright-eyed contestant America had first fallen for. Something in his posture had changed, quieter, heavier, but more certain. During one live episode, he stepped forward and announced that he would perform an original song titled, "Tell That Angel I Love Her." The audience had no idea what they were about to witness. As he began to sing, the studio lights dimmed, leaving only his silhouette and the soft hum of his guitar. His voice quivered on the first verse, carrying raw pain that no arrangement could mask. The song wasn't about competition or fame, it was a letter to his lost friend. Each lyric painted a picture of grief and love intertwined, a farewell wrapped in melody. By the second chorus, even the judges were visibly emotional. Perry was seen wiping tears, while Lionel simply whispered, "That's real." When John hit the final note and let the silence linger, the room erupted into a standing ovation, not out of sympathy, but out of respect for the bravery it took to bare his soul in front of millions. For a brief moment, reality television transcended entertainment. It became human. That performance didn't just move the audience, it became one of the most talked about moments of the season, shared across social media with captions like, "This is what music is supposed to do." But even with all the praise, John didn't bask in it. He later said that night wasn't about winning hearts, it was about saying goodbye. And though it broke him to sing it, that performance became his healing, a way to let memory live forever through song. The backstage struggles and what WE didn't see. While the world saw John Foster's powerful performance as a moment of triumph, behind the stage, the story was much more complicated. The emotional toll of reliving his death through music weighed heavily on him. Crew members and fellow contestants later revealed that John often spent long hours alone after rehearsals, sitting quietly with his guitar, strumming unfinished melodies and staring at the floor. Producers tried to give him space, understanding that grief doesn't follow a schedule, especially not one designed for television. Despite his growing popularity, John wrestled with guilt, questioning whether turning his pain into performance was the right thing to do. Fame can be loud and blinding, but grief is a whisper that follows you even in applause. Backstage, he was caught between the demand to keep entertaining and the need to simply heal. He once told a reporter, "Every time I sing that song, I lose her again." Still, he kept showing up, every live show, every interview, every fan meet, because he knew that somewhere out there, someone might be hearing his story and finding comfort in it. The judges admired that quiet resilience, often remarking that his humility set him apart. But make no mistake, the cameras captured only half the story. The rest happened off-air, the tears, the silence, and the late-night moments when John wasn't sure he could keep going. Yet somehow, he did. That inner battle between fame and fragility became the invisible thread that shaped not just his artistry, but his humanity. Life after Idol, the next chapter. When the American Idol lights dimmed and the confetti settled, John Foster found himself standing at a crossroads familiar to many contestants. What happens after the show ends? For John, the answer wasn't fame or chart-topping singles, it was rebuilding, one quiet day at a time. He returned to Louisiana for a while, retreating to the same small-town comfort that raised him. Locals described seeing him around Addis, smiling more softly now, sometimes performing at community events or just spending time with friends who knew him before the world did. But beneath that calm return was a fire still burning. On social media, fans began to notice cryptic studio posts, a guitar resting beside a microphone, lyrics scribbled on notebook paper, captions like "She'd be proud." Whispers spread that John was working on new music, deeply personal songs inspired by the lessons and loss that shaped him. His reunion with Underwood at the Grand Ole added fuel to the speculation, with both artists seen sharing an emotional backstage moment that fans dubbed the mentor and the soul singer. Yet John's rise wasn't built on spectacle. It was quiet, grounded, and rooted in sincerity. While other Idol alumni chased commercial deals, John seemed focused on something: connection. He once told a journalist, "If one person listens and feels less alone, then I've already won." That quote, humble yet piercing, became a reflection of who he'd become, not just a performer, but a storyteller healing himself and others through every note. The industry might measure success in fame, but John Foster was proving that true success comes when your music still matters, even after the cameras stop rolling. Why his story still matters. In a music industry obsessed with virality and quick fame, John Foster's story feels almost revolutionary, a reminder that authenticity still cuts deeper than spectacle. His journey from small-town Louisiana to the national stage and through unimaginable tragedy speaks to something universal, that pain and purpose often coexist in the same breath. Critics later described his American Idol run as the season's emotional heartbeat, not because of technical perfection, but because of the honesty that resonated through every lyric he sang. Fans still revisit his performances online, commenting not just on his talent, but on how his story helped them through their own grief, loss, or self-doubt. Even months after the finale, hashtags like "Tell That Angel I Love Her" continue to circulate, proving that John's impact didn't fade with the season's end, it evolved into something timeless. What makes his story so compelling is that it's not just about music. It's about survival, empathy, and the courage to keep creating when the world feels too heavy. In interviews today, John speaks less about fame and more about meaning. Music isn't about being known, he once said, it's about being felt. That simple sentence sums up what many believe American Idol missed in its televised storytelling, the quiet power of a young man who turned heartbreak into harmony. John Foster may not have been the season's winner, but his legacy outlasts trophies. His songs remind us that even the deepest wounds can give birth to something beautiful, and that's a truth worth singing about. In the end, the heartbreaking story of John Foster isn't defined by a single song, performance, or episode. It's defined by resilience. He entered American Idol as a hopeful dreamer from Louisiana and left as an artist who reminded millions why music matters in the first place. His voice carried more than melody. It carried grief, love, and the courage to keep standing when life feels unbearable. The show gave him a stage, but what came after, the quiet rebuilding, the community performances, the raw authenticity, became the real story American Idol never told. For those who watched his journey unfold, it wasn't about pity. It was about admiration for someone who refused to let tragedy be the final verse of his song. Every note he sings now feels like a continuation of that unfinished goodbye, a testament that even in the aftermath of loss, there's always a reason to sing again. And maybe that's the lesson John left for all of us, that the most beautiful stories aren't the ones written in fame or fortune, but in the fragile strength it takes to turn heartbreak into hope. His chapter on Idol might be over, but his story, like his music, is still playing softly, truthfully, and forever from the heart.